Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. A rare testimony of a former president. Bill Clinton facing lawmakers today. Nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran conclude without a deal in place. What's next as speculation grows over potential strikes? President Trump heading to South Texas today, spotlighting his drill baby drill energy agenda in Corpus Christi. The visit comes as high-stake Republican primaries shake up key Senate and House races. Netflix shares jumping today after the company drops its bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. The studio's board now saying it received a better offer from Paramount.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today's Friday, February 27th. I'm Stephanie Cox. Former President Bill Clinton is testifying today before members of Congress. This comes as part of the House Oversight Committee's Epstein probe and a day after former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified. Here's Committee Chair James Comer.
Today, we hope to be able to do as we did yesterday and continue to bring some of the most powerful people in the world in to answer questions. Again, no one's accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I think the American people have a lot of questions, and our House Oversight Committee is committed to getting answers. We're committed to transparency. Ms. Clinton deferred a lot of questions to her husband today. There were at least a dozen times when she said, "You'll have to ask my husband that. I can't answer that." So we already had a big portfolio of questions for him, and that increased yesterday.
The deposition is behind closed doors, but videos will be made public soon. This would mark the first time in over 40 years that a sitting or former president is testifying before members of Congress. The Clintons have maintained that they had no personal knowledge of any criminal activities by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein or his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. The former first couple initially refused to testify after being subpoenaed, but they agreed after lawmakers began contempt proceedings. The committee expects today's deposition to be even longer than yesterday's, which lasted roughly 6 hours. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says she never met Jeffrey Epstein, telling members of Congress she had no knowledge of the crimes committed by the convicted sex offender. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the updates from yesterday's closed-door hearing before a House panel.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices.
In a closed-door hearing Clinton described as repetitive, she insisted on having no knowledge about Epstein's crimes, admitting to casually knowing his one-time girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I think we learned a lot. There were a lot of questions that we asked that we weren't satisfied with the answers that we got, but we will continue to move forward.
Comer said the full transcript of the closed-door meeting will be released 24 hours after it concluded. House lawmakers questioned the former Secretary of State about her knowledge of Epstein's ties to the Clinton Global Initiative.
Most of the questions that we asked about the Clinton Global Initiative, which were very specific questions, some of them were backed by emails and other documents that have been released by the Department of Justice. She said that she was a senator and you would have to ask her husband that tomorrow.
Ghislaine Maxwell told the Deputy Attorney General that she was friends with Bill Clinton, and the former president never went to the island where authorities say Epstein repeatedly abused minors.
I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing.
Flight logs and photographs show Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane in 2002 and 2003, and court documents stated that he went to Epstein's island.
How does someone with such evil infiltrate the highest levels of the U.S. government and world leaders?
Lawmakers say with millions of files and so many people involved, they expect the investigation to go on for a long time. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
The U.S. and Iran wrap up high-stakes nuclear talks without a deal. The negotiations lasting for hours yesterday as the U.S. builds up aircraft and warships in the region. Here are the details.
The threat of war remains after the U.S. and Iran concluded indirect negotiations Thursday in Geneva. Oman's foreign minister, who is mediating the talks, said there was significant progress in negotiations. Iran's foreign minister echoing that message in an interview with state television.
I can say that we made good progress after several hours of intensive negotiation. We have started serious discussions about elements of a deal, both in the field of nuclear issues and the removal of sanctions.
However, all parties walked away from the table without a deal in place. Before talks ended, Iranian state television reported that Tehran would demand to continue to enrich uranium and refuse to ship any of its enriched uranium abroad. Both are contrary to what President Trump has said he wants to see. Trump is pushing for a deal to constrain Iran's nuclear program as the country faces growing dissent at home. Iran maintains it has the right to enrich uranium and does not want to discuss its long-range missile program or support for terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Vice President J.D. Vance weighing in, defending potential U.S. strikes if diplomacy fails. Vance telling the Washington Post Thursday there is no chance any strikes would lead to a drawn-out war. He said such strikes would be a deterrent to prevent Iran from pursuing a nuclear weapon, calling himself and President Trump skeptics on foreign military intervention. Oman's foreign minister says technical-level talks will continue next week in Vienna, the home of the International Atomic Energy Agency.
The U.S. Embassy in Israel is authorizing departures for non-emergency personnel and family members as tensions rise over a possible American strike on Iran. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee told staff today discussions with Washington led to the decision. In an email obtained by NBC, he says those wishing to take authorized departure should do so today. He warned that flights may not remain available. Huckabee said there was no need for panic, but urged anyone considering leaving to act quickly. The State Department also updated its travel advisory. It urged Americans to reconsider travel to Israel and the West Bank and to avoid border areas amid terrorism and ongoing security risks. The State Department says Secretary Marco Rubio will travel to Israel early next week. Rubio's visit may suggest a longer timeline for any potential strike. Meanwhile, a confidential report from the International Atomic Energy Agency raising new concerns. It says Iran has not allowed inspectors access to sensitive nuclear sites, saying those sites were heavily bombed during a 12-day war launched by Israel last June. The agency says it cannot confirm Iran's claim that it stopped uranium enrichment after U.S. and Israeli strikes. And as the latest U.S.-Iran talks wrap up in Geneva and Trump's deadline for Tehran to make a deal on its nuclear program nears, we're joined by David Wormser, an analyst for Middle East affairs at the Center for Security Policy. Good to have you with us, David. Your thoughts on the latest round of talks?
Well, the Iranians and Omanis are projecting some degree of optimism, but I think it's more spin than reality. When you look at what the American position is, what the stated position of Iran is, and Ayatollah Khomeini today on Friday prayers gave a speech, and he outlined the red lines of Iran. And we're talking very wide gaps with the United States. So I don't think really the talks are getting anywhere. And that it really feeds right into both President Trump's deadline of 10 days, which was a few days ago, and overall the feeling that President Trump has put forward that either Iran talks or else there's going to be an alternative route here. And I think this more or less tells us we're heading toward the alternative route.
Yeah, and also just this week, the president said that Iran was working to build missiles that could hit the U.S. How imminent is a potential conflict?
Well, I mean, Iran has launched satellites, and it claims at least it tested a missile of 10,000 kilometer range a month ago, which is not enough to hit the United States. Theoretically, if you can launch a satellite, you could get something onto the United States. It may have an error circle of a size of a state, but it might be done. But the truth is, I think a really functional missile to hit the United States is still a few years away. But that is where Iran wants to go. And it has missiles that can now hit Europe. It's close to being able to hit London, but it certainly can hit many other European capitals right now. So it's the aspiration that we're seeing with Iran.
You're saying
that
that
really is
Iran
concerning.
wants to have a conflict?
Well, I don't think it wants to have a conflict, but it does not want to give in. It right now sees giving in as much greater threat to its regime's survival than confrontation with the United States. It ultimately believes it can manipulate and navigate its way to survival. Time will tell if that's true. But certainly it knows that if it gives in, the Iranian people will see it as weakness, and the Iranian people are already in full force fighting the regime.
Okay, we'll pivot a little here to Beijing and its role in all of this. Earlier this week, it came out that the communist regime is close to a deal to export missiles to Iran. If it came to it, would the U.S. consider a strike from one of these missiles on American assets as a strike by both Iran and China?
Yeah, I doubt the United States would now try to escalate with China, but it would definitely factor into our view of China and our threat perception of China if that happened. We do believe that Iran has received some missiles from China, specifically air defense missiles, but perhaps others. We believe there's some electronic warfare equipment that Iran has received from China in recent weeks. Perhaps the disappeared drone of yesterday might have been a factor in that, might have been hijacked or brought down by such measures. China has definitely been involved helping Iran, both because it wants the United States to be weakened wherever it can weaken the United States. But second of all, it is worried about the fall of the Iranian regime because it knows that a freedom revolution anywhere in the world can give ideas to the Chinese population and encourage a quest for freedom there. So they're very worried about that.
And both regimes currently suffering, the nations of both suffering with instability and seeming closer and closer to such an eventuality. But walk us through the pros and cons of a potential U.S. strike on Iran.
Well, start with the cons, because that's easy. Iran has many missiles, short range and long range. They can shoot, first of all, at the United States and our forces throughout the region. Now, we've done a lot to protect them. We've done a lot to remove them. But you can always get missiles hitting our forces. That's number one. Number two, and that can lead to large casualties. The second thing is you could have American aircraft shot down, and then we have a hostage situation with our pilots. The third area that's quite possible is that Iran will strike Israeli cities and get lucky this time, and all they need is one missile to hit a building wrong, and you could have 500 dead Israelis. So you have all these ways in which this can go off the rails. I don't think some of the apocalyptic scenarios of China intervening, Russia intervening, World War III, I think these are unrealistic ideas. Russia, China are not in a position to go to war with the United States over Iran, nor does the United States want to go to war with China or Russia over Iran. Now, the other area that's dangerous is that Iran's regime survives and kills another 10, 20, 50, 100,000 Iranians in revenge. That's awful. And even if the war works positively with Iran, a downside could be that it could destabilize Saudi Arabia potentially. And that, of course, would be a concern for the United States. On the positive side, though, you could see a much quicker than anticipated collapse of the regime. The Iranian people step up to the plate and remove this threat that has plagued the West for 50 years almost. One forgets how central a role Iran has played, first in the Cold War and then afterwards, in really damaging the United States, killing Americans, and sowing instability regionally and increasingly globally, and how central a role it plays in this axis between China, Russia, we saw with Venezuela, Cuba, and so forth. So the removal of the Iranian regime would be a momentous positive event. And second of all, it would be a validation of American power and purpose. It would bring great respect in the region. Israel would gain a lot of respect in the region, which in the end is both are strong forces for stability.
Democrats are preparing to bring war powers resolutions up for votes in both the House and Senate next week. Could this slow action from Trump, and what might be the impact of that?
Well, slow action certainly builds pressure. Whenever you're hesitant in making a decision, the forces that are trying to sway your decision will get stronger, and that is what's happening here. And you're seeing efforts in the House, the Senate, and so forth to try to take control of this and use that to try to derail the move toward war. So there's obviously that danger. There's also other dangers in waiting. Iran is not, I used to play chess and I thought I had great strategies, but I forgot I had an opponent that was also strategizing, and he beat me before my strategy came to fruition. We have to remember that with Iran is also acting out there, as are China, Russia, and others. So it's dangerous. But that said, Israel is involved here as well, and it's not clear that the United States will take the lead here. It's possible Israel will. It certainly is likely Israel will participate in a certain way, and the Iranian people are definitely major actors here. So even though this is cast here as an American strike on Iran, this is really a war that is already underway on the ground and has been since last June.
Lastly, what do you think Trump might do next?
Well, I think at this point, unless Iran really does capitulate immediately in the next 2-3 days, I think we're headed toward a major strike. Again, I'm not sure it's an American strike that then involves the Israelis, an Israeli strike that America will help defend Israel from defensive measures. I don't know the shape of it, but it seems to me we're headed for confrontation. And the confrontation won't be too limited. It will it may intend to be starting with the nuclear program and the missile programs. But in the end, I think it really is about the Iranian regime, and I think it ends that way, with the Iranian regime ultimately on the target sites of both Israel and the United States.
Well, great to hear your thoughts and all your expertise today. Thank you so much, David Wormser. And President Trump is traveling to southern Texas today to promote his economic and fossil fuel agenda. The move comes just days before competitive Republican primary elections in the state. The president is set to speak in Corpus Christi, the nation's top exporter of liquefied natural gas. The White House says he'll highlight his Drill Baby Drill energy platform. Trump's visit comes as Republicans battle over key House and Senate races ahead of November's midterms. Trump has stayed out of Texas's heated Senate primary so far. Public opinion polls show Senator John Cornyn trailing two challengers, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Congressman Wesley Hunt. Now a look at the economy. A key inflation indicator moved higher in January, which may signal rising consumer prices in the months ahead. The Producer Price Index, or PPI, rose 0.5% in January. That's up from 0.4% in December. That's according to data released today by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The PPI measures the prices businesses pay for goods and services. Those costs are often passed on to consumers. Economists had forecast a 0.3% rise. And the bidding war has come to an end. Shares of Netflix surging more than 9% this morning after the company said it's walking away from its bid to take over Warner Brothers. Meanwhile, Paramount Global also climbing about 10% after winning the race for some of the world's most prized television and film assets. Here are the details.
Netflix said on Thursday that it was backing out of its bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery's streaming and studio assets. It comes shortly after Warner Brothers said a revised $31 per share offer from Paramount Skydance was superior to its existing deal with Netflix. In a statement, Netflix said, quote, "At the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid." Netflix, which wanted to buy the Warner Brothers streaming and studio businesses, agreed in December to pay $27.75 a share, saying the offer, along with a planned spin-off of Warner Brothers cable assets, would deliver a greater shareholder value. Paramount, meanwhile, has argued it has a clearer path to U.S. regulatory approval. On Thursday, Paramount said it welcomed Warner Brothers' board's unanimous reaffirmation that its bid represents the stronger offer.
AI company Anthropic has rejected the Pentagon's request to allow unrestricted use of its Claude AI model. The company cited concerns the technology could be used for mass domestic surveillance or fully autonomous weapons. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei called those applications, quote, simply outside the bounds of what today's technology can safely and reliably do. The CEO also alleged that the Department of War had threatened to invoke the Defense Production Act to compel Anthropic to allow unrestricted use of its technology. Amodei said the company hopes to continue supporting the military with the requested safeguards in place. A Pentagon spokesperson clarified the department had no intention of using AI for mass domestic surveillance or fully autonomous weapons, saying the request was limited to lawful uses. And NASA is expanding the scope of its Artemis moon program. A new mission will involve a spacecraft docking test in the Earth's orbit. It will take place before astronauts land on the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. The changes come as China moves closer to its goal of a manned moon landing by 2030. The new Artemis mission plan for next year, NASA now plans to land astronauts on the moon during Artemis 4 in 2028. NASA also canceled an effort to upgrade its Space Launch System rocket. Instead, the space agency will focus on increasing that rocket's production and flight rate, which has been slowed compared to newer rockets. Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin are each developing an astronaut lunar lander for the program. If you've ever ordered dinner or last-minute items for delivery, you've probably been asked to include a tip. Several apps say 100% of that money goes to drivers. Regulators allege Walmart failed to keep that promise on multiple occasions. The Federal Trade Commission says Walmart will pay $100 million to settle a pay dispute. The FTC and 11 states allege it misled Spark delivery drivers about base pay and tips. It also says the retailer falsely claimed the entirety of customers' tips would go to those workers. The commission is requiring the chain to implement an earnings verification program for drivers. It says Walmart also committed to increased transparency and accuracy around compensation. And Denver's mayor is barring federal immigration agents from city property. Mayor Mike Johnston announced the move yesterday through an executive order. It bans federal immigration officers from operating on city property and directs Denver police and sheriff's deputies to document federal agents with body cameras. The order also requires local law enforcement to provide life-saving aid to anyone harmed by federal officers. It also orders them to intervene in instances of force that could cause death or serious bodily injury. Johnston says the city is seeking to protect civil liberties, not provoke conflict. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson called the order legally illiterate and accused Johnston of continuing to release pedophiles, rapists, murderers, and more onto the streets. And the Justice Department is suing 5 more states: Utah, Oklahoma, Kentucky, West Virginia, and New Jersey. It accuses them of refusing to provide full voter registration lists as requested under the Civil Rights Act of 1960. The DOJ said the Attorney General has broad authority to demand statewide voter rolls for inspection and analysis to check for improper registrations. The department's Civil Rights Division has now filed complaints against 29 states and the District of Columbia over voter roll access. According to the lawsuit, Utah officials cited privacy concerns and provided only a redacted public version of the list. Similar allegations were made against the other 4 states. Attorney General Pam Bondi said accurate voter rolls are essential to election integrity. Officials in the 5 states did not respond to requests for comment. And the Supreme Court is poised to hear arguments on major constitutional and legal issues over the next several months. NTD's Arlene Richards breaks down some of the top cases.
In the coming months, the Supreme Court will hear some tough issues, including the constitutionality of President Trump's birthright citizenship policy and the arrival dates for mail-in ballots. Birthright citizenship.
Ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore.
On April 1st, the 9 justices will hear arguments over whether or not Trump's executive order to withhold citizenship from the children of illegal immigrants complies with the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment. The clause guarantees citizenship to people born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
That we've understood for more than 100 years, well over 100 years, to say that it doesn't matter what the status of your parents are. If you're born in this country, then you are a citizen of this country.
That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country.
Trump says the clause doesn't apply to mothers who are in the country temporarily or unlawfully, and if their fathers likewise are not legal citizens.
It has created this perverse incentive for people to come here illegally, and if they have a child, then at that point that child would be a citizen under that interpretation.
The president is guessing that the court will rule against him. He said in a recent post that the court would likely rule in favor of China and other nations and allow them to make a fortune. In April, the court will hear the arguments that will ultimately lead to a ruling that either supports Trump's immigration policy or upholds a potential misunderstanding that's been followed for decades. Mail-in ballots. On March 23rd, the High Court will consider whether states can count mail-in ballots received after Election Day. The Republican National Committee and others alleged Mississippi violated a federal law by allowing mail-in ballots to be counted as long as they are received within 5 business days after Election Day. A lower court said it's illegal. Several states adopted the mail-in ballot rule in 2020 during the COVID pandemic.
State after state after state, anti-integrity voting groups sued state after state to get rid of all the safeguards.
Mississippi has argued that an election is the conclusive choice of an officer. The committee has warned that allowing states to change the law could cause chaos and flip the results of an election. A decision is expected before the upcoming midterm primaries. Other top issues coming up include gun rights for drug users, asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border, and the potential cancer risk of Monsanto's weed killer. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. Afghanistan and Pakistan are trading strikes as tensions escalate. Pakistan's defense minister saying the two countries are now in open war. The Afghan Taliban says Pakistan struck several provinces and the capital, Kabul. Pakistan says it's responding to unprovoked attacks from its neighbor to the west. Earlier this week, Pakistan conducted strikes deep inside Afghanistan. And the Taliban said yesterday it had captured several Pakistani army posts. Tension between the countries has been high for months, with border clashes in October killing dozens of soldiers and civilians. And the U.S. is offering on-site passport services in the West Bank for the first time. The American Embassy in Jerusalem says the move is part of efforts to reach all Americans abroad. U.S. citizens in the area reacting.
We're here to report the birth of our daughter, who was born a couple years ago, and to get a Social Security number for her. And it's really, really not just an issue of convenience, but it really is helpful to be recognized that there are so many American citizens who are living here, and to help us to be able to get these services that we need.
This was great. Bureaucracy in general is not so fun to have to deal with, and to have it come to you is just so much easier and more pleasant.
It was amazing.
It was really quick. Amazing. It was quick. They were super efficient. You can see that the members of the embassy do this a lot. So it was a well-oiled machine.
Russian officials say a local ceasefire is in effect near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine. Officials said the pause in fighting will allow repairs to an external power line. Russian forces have largely controlled Europe's biggest nuclear power plant since the start of the war in 2022. The facility isn't producing electricity, and it relies on external power to keep its nuclear material cool and avoid a meltdown. Russia and Ukraine have frequently accused each other of risking a catastrophic incident at the plant by conducting military operations nearby. Control over the facility has become a key issue in U.S.-led talks to end the war. Negotiations are expected to continue in Geneva next month. The UK's Green Party won a by-election today, taking control of a parliamentary seat from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's ruling Labour Party. Hannah Spencer was declared the winner in Gorton and Denton, a constituency in the Greater Manchester area of northwest England. The Reform UK Party came in second. Labor finished the election in third place. Spencer will become the Greens' 5th representative in the 650-seat House of Commons. Her election win marks a shift in an area the Labor Party has long controlled. Starmer described his party's loss as very disappointing. Public buses and trams across most of Germany are coming to a halt today. Transport workers walking off the job, answering a call to strike. The union seeks leverage in ongoing talks, which focus on working conditions and bonuses. Salaries are also part of the dispute. The negotiations cover about 150 bus and local train companies nationwide, including states like Berlin and Hamburg. Around 100,000 employees are involved. And the father of US-based Hong Kong pro-democracy activist is now facing 8 months in prison. It's the first involving the family member of a wanted activist abroad under the city's draconian national security law. The daughter says Hong Kong authorities jailed her father to stop her from speaking out. Here's more.
The father of a wanted Hong Kong pro-democracy activist has been sentenced to 8 months in jail under the city's national security law. Seen here arriving at the courts 2 weeks ago with his son, 69-year-old Kwok Yin Sang, was found guilty under a city law known as Article 23. That expands on the Beijing-imposed national security law, criminalizing any attempt to deal with, directly or indirectly, any funds or other financial assets or economic resources belonging to an absconder. Kwok is the first person in the city to be charged and convicted with the offense.
So basically, my dad currently is being convicted of attempting to deal with finances, assets that are owned by me.
His daughter, Anna Kwok, helps lead the Washington-based advocacy group Hong Kong Democracy Council and is one of the 34 overseas activists wanted by Hong Kong National Security Police. She spoke to Reuters in Washington last week.
Basically, I was, a little kid still learning how to say dad. And he got this insurance policy under his name, so the policy has always been owned by him. But because I was, on the policy as an insured or beneficiary, I don't even know. The Hong Kong government is saying that he's dealing with my finances and therefore he's being convicted.
Her father was accused of trying to withdraw funds totaling around $11,000 from that policy. Magistrate Andy Chung said Kwok's case was a serious one under the national security law and had nothing to do with family ties. Anna says, given the chance, she would apologize to her father.
I will give him a hug for sure. Asian dads are not very known for showing affection with hugs, and I realized this year I don't think I've ever hugged my dad since I became an adult, so that would be something I do. But at the same time, I would also apologize for, putting him in this situation, in this position.
Coming up in the NBA, we have a new three-point rookie record. NTD's Dave Martin joins to discuss Charlotte's young sharpshooter. And Italy hosting a competition this fall celebrating one of its most iconic and beloved desserts. 240 participants from Europe, the Americas, and Asia are expected to compete. And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, good to have you in studio again. I know we've got NFL and Major League Baseball news. Let's start with the NBA, though. Charlotte's Knueppel set the rookie record straight. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Knueppel broke the rookie record for most three-pointers made in a season when he hit his 207th of the season last night against the Indiana Pacers. Now, Knueppel scored 28 points, tied his season high with 8 three-pointers made in 12 tries. He now has 209 on the season. That not only leads all rookies, it leads everybody in the NBA. Now, just for some context, the rookie record was set 3 years ago by Keegan Murray, who hit 206 in 80 games. Knueppel has 209, and he's done it in just 59 games. That's well ahead, of course, of even what Steph Curry did as a rookie. He hit 166 back in 2010. Now, Curry is the all-time career leader in three-pointers made. He's also the all-time single-season made record with 402. In any case, Knueppel certainly one of the candidates for winning Rookie of the Year this year.
That's pretty exciting. Okay, let's shift gears to the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys will reportedly place the franchise tag on wide receiver George Pickens. What does that all mean for the Cowboys?
Well, it basically means they keep him from entering free agency. Of course, the flip side is it's a hefty one-year contract to do so. Now, basically, teams can place a franchise tag on a player whose contract has run out to keep them from signing elsewhere. The flip side of that, the tag, even though it's a one-year deal, it's expensive. It's the average of the top 5 salaries at their position or 120% of their previous salary, whichever is higher. So for Pickens, that's going to be about $28 million for the upcoming season. Now, last year was Pickens' first in Dallas after coming over a trade from Pittsburgh. He had his best season ever, making the Pro Bowl. He was also a second-team All-Pro pick after catching 93 passes for more than 1,400 receiving yards. Now, it'd be interesting to see how this works out for Dallas because they've already got CeeDee Lamb at their other receiver spot. Lamb makes $34 million a season. Lamb is certainly one of the best in the league, but the NFL salary cap, which just came out today, is just over $300 million. So you're talking about $60 million just going to your 2 wide receivers. So not many teams would really want to allocate that much to just one position, but if you've got 2 good ones, maybe you do.
Looks like it.
Maybe you do.
Yeah. Moving now to baseball news. The Toronto Blue Jays have reportedly re-signed pitcher Max Scherzer to a 1-year contract. Why do you think they would sign him now, 2 weeks into the spring season?
Yeah,
spring training.
For sure. Well, they already lost Bowden Francis, a fellow starter for the season with an arm injury, plus another starter, Shane Bieber, is experiencing forearm fatigue, and Bieber has really missed already most of the last 2 seasons with an injury himself. So there's certainly a need. Now, fortunately for Toronto, they already signed Dylan Cease to a more than $100 million deal, and he is about as dependable as they come. Plus, they've got rookie Trey Yesavage, who really kind of emerged last fall, especially in the playoffs, as a good-looking prospect for the future. Now, in addition to that, Scherzer pitched last season for Toronto. It appears his family enjoyed the city as well. I'm going to show here what Scherzer's wife, Erica, posted yesterday on social media. This is a letter their young daughter, Brooke, actually wrote to the Blue Jays about wanting to come back next season. You can see who actually wrote in last December. It said, "Dear Blue Jays, I am so sorry that you didn't win the World Series. I hope that you win next time. I hope my dad is back on the team. My whole family loves spending time in Toronto with our dad. We love the aquarium, the CN Tower, and of course, the stadium. I am looking forward to coming back next season. Love, Max Scherzer's daughter." Isn't that very adorable?
Very sweet.
You know, I gotta say, I'm a little bit envious of her penmanship. You know, it's much better than mine, right?
Yes, quite skillful. Yeah,
very impressive.
Yeah,
so
clearly.
She got her wish. Apparently, it's reportedly a 1-year deal for $3 million. Scherzer, 41 years old. Whenever he does retire, he will be in the Hall of Fame.
Nice. Well, congratulations to him.
Yes.
Good to have the updates. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Steph.
All right, and next this fall, Italy will host a competition celebrating one of its most iconic and beloved desserts. Competitors will vie for the title in 2 categories, original and creative. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the recipe and its history.
Egg yolks, sugar, mascarpone, the basic ingredients for tiramisu. The dessert dates back to the 19th century around the town of Treviso, with the final version taking shape in 1970 at Le Becquerie. Le Becquerie chef Manuel Gobo says tiramisu gets its character from an orchestra of flavors.
Coffee gives a bitter taste, mascarpone gives an acidic taste, then there's sugar and egg, which give a sweet taste, together with the ladyfingers, and cocoa adds a little more bitterness. All these flavors together create the unmistakable taste of tiramisu. Each one plays its part.
The Beccheria owner, Paolo Lae, says making the dessert is a lengthy, detailed process.
It's like creating a great wine, I would say, because you have to bring together many small elements that form a circle. So attention in the kitchen during preparation, attention and care in selecting the raw ingredients, and in turn, those who produce the raw ingredients. The right amount of time to let the dessert rest.
Lae describes the dessert's taste in terms of nostalgia.
The beaten egg, the sugar, the cream, the coffee, the biscuit, all these elements that remind us, perhaps those of us who are a little older, perhaps today's children don't remember them, but they remember their grandmothers, their mothers, these maternal figures who fill their hearts. So these flavors are always associated with memories. Taste is a memory.
The Tiramisu World Cup is planned for October. 240 participants from Europe, the Americas, and Asia are expected to compete. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
This weekend, be sure to take a look up at the night sky. A remarkable celestial alignment is set to unfold on Saturday. Astronomers call it a planetary parade. That's when multiple planets appear to line up in the sky at once. While they're not arranged in a perfect line, their proximity creates the visual effect of alignment. And according to NASA, 6 planets will be visible this weekend. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn may be seen with the naked eye under clear skies. Uranus and Neptune will require binoculars and telescopes. Viewers should look approximately 1 hour after sunset toward the western horizon, away from city lights and obstructions. Planetary groupings of this size are relatively uncommon. Scientists say this phenomenon reminds us that, as in centuries past, simply looking up remains one of the most direct ways to observe our place in the solar system. That's all we have time for this hour, but if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Stephanie Cox. Thanks for watching.